Hey everyone and welcome to Storytime. My name is Jake and today we are going to be looking at the subreddit r/maliciouscompliance, where people conform to the letter but not the spirit of a request. If you're new around here, please do hit subscribe down below so that you never miss out on another video. But for now, let's sit back, relax, and enjoy some malicious compliance. Don't pay me my wages? I won't serve your customers. So this is something that isn't all that uncommon in the service industry, but I thought I would share. Working as a bartender for a hotel that I enjoyed being a part of, I'd always had a huge interest in making cocktails, so when I scored this job, I was over the moon. On top of that, it had a very good rate of pay and said that although they wouldn't pay me overtime rate, they would pay overtime hours worked. This isn't bad at all for a full-time in the service industry, as normally you are paid a salary and then massively overworked without any extra money for the insane hours worked. So, enter a new general manager and a business consultant. They have been recruited to try and save the restaurant/bar some money, as it's making no profit whatsoever. Now, there is an obvious reason as to why it makes no money in the restaurant. The bar made 3 times the profit expected, and that is as follows. 1. Employing a team of 50 people per day. Every day is a huge drain on your income when your income does not compensate. Number 2. Being top heavy in managers with high salaries is beyond stupid. Number 3. Employing 3 incompetent people to do 1 competent person's job is the equivalent of hitting yourself in the foot. So, the bar operates on a team of 12 people during the week, whereas the restaurant operates on a team of 30 people per day. We averaged a maximum of 3 bartenders and 1 bar back working a busy shift and maybe 2 bartenders on a quiet shift. The bar is open until 1 AM every day and opens at 6 AM, so it has long opening hours. Staff start and finish times are staggered to give the most effective use of staff hours when needed. The general manager and business consultant decide that they need to make cuts on all overtime hours. Sensible decision, but they decide to start making cuts in the wrong places. Bartenders first. A meeting is called and all bartenders attend. It's explained to us that we will be receiving less overtime hours, so expect to be put on less shifts. More time at home. This is a win-win so far. What they neglected to tell us is that they would be pulling people from the busiest shifts, as these had the latest close times and often occurred for the most overtime hours. So, we end up short-staffed, being hit with complaints for slow service, and the staff start to get annoyed and look for work elsewhere. We ended up increasing our overtime hours as we had to work later than expected because we had less staff than needed to do a quick close down. 2 months later, and the remaining staff start muttering things about their pay being much lower than usual. So, we club together and start working out how much we've lost and how much we are being paid. It turns out that no one has been paid for a single hour over their contracted minimum. Now, to some people, this may not be much, but for us, it's anything between 40 and 80 hours a month extra. I spoke to the new general manager in a meeting in which the business consultant declared he had to attend. The conversation went as followed. It's come to my attention and the attention of many of the staff that we are no longer being paid for the hours that we work. Is there an error in payroll or is something else going wrong? Payslips don't reflect what we are working and our hours accumulated have been changed to salary. Well, we have had to cut costs. Like we said several weeks ago, as a result, you aren't getting as much overtime, so your pay has dropped. Now, I'm a stickler for counting my hours worked. I take photos/film when I clock in and out every day. I then enter those times into a spreadsheet that automatically calculates normally hourly wage, deducts time taken for a break, and then adds additional overtime. This operates on a monthly basis, and pumps out a figure which should reflect my monthly wage. 99.9% of the time, it was correct. The only times it wasn't was where the odd 15 minutes was missed off by payroll. But I didn't really care about that. I pull out my laptop, hook it into a projector, and go through each cell and explain how it works, much to the amusement of both the general manager and the business consultant. I then pull out my last 2 months' hours worked, compare them to my new payslips, and have a slideshow running on the other half of the screen with pictures of my documented clock in and out times. With this piled against them, they decide to try and sidesweep it under the proverbial rug. Their idea is that if they just ignore it, I'll drop it and find work elsewhere like the others. However, after 2 further weeks of no response, my team and I make an ironclad deal between ourselves. If we aren't getting paid more than our minimum hours, then we won't work a single minute more. Roll on a busy weekend immediately after payday. No one has been paid their extra hours, so the plan goes into effect. We all monitor the time and one by one start immediately dropping what we were doing, apologizing to the customers, and leave. It takes an hour before the general manager figures out what's happening, at which point there are 2 people working a crazy busy bar. I'm approached by the general manager. Where are the others? Why have they left? What's going on? Well, we don't get paid to work more than our minimum, so why should we bother continuing on past our paid hours? The others have gone home because they know that they won't be paid for anything past that time. That's ridiculous. You can't just walk out and leave the place like this. Actually, I think you will find that we can and will. Now the bar was busy. Having only myself and one other on it at this point meant we were losing money through lack of service, slow service, and through apologizing for bad service in general. This very quickly started piling up into thousands. I think you should be aware that my shift ends in the next 15 minutes and the other bartender will be leaving the next 30 minutes. This was at 8:30 PM on a Friday night. For some reason, the general manager just ignored me and scurried off back into the restaurant. 15 minutes later, I left. 15 minutes after that, my colleague left. Minutes after that, the entire bar effectively went under. We all met in another venue with phones turned off, enjoying a drink and laughing about what had happened. We were pulled into a meeting with HR and management the following week to discuss our behaviour. I explained the situation and told them that unless we were paid our overtime for the past 2 months and every month following, it would happen every weekend and that there was literally nothing they could do about it. Now, this is completely legal. If you aren't being paid, you don't have to work it. They threatened to immediately dismiss the entire team if we didn't change our attitudes. We promptly folded our arms in defiance as one of the team calmly but firmly said, "Do it. Have fun running the bar with no staff." We were all told to leave the premises there and then. In the following months, we all learned that the place had never recovered as we had sent out messages on local bartenders groups stating that whoever worked there would not be treated properly and would not receive the correct pay. It switched from a high-end cocktail bar down to a standard pub-style bar and then finally closed altogether for renovations. The hotel was eventually taken over by a global company and underwent extensive renovations. We all found jobs fairly quickly after leaving, but never saw our 2 months unpaid overtime, sadly. It just reminds me of that shocked Pikachu face again. It's like, work for free or you're all fired. And it's like, you know what? Alright, fire us then. And the shocked Pikachu face is like, what? Don't touch the settings? Got it, boss. A few years ago, I, briefly, worked in this office where almost everyone was horrible. The boss and the managers were very rude to us workers and treated us like servants. I have a bunch of stories about that job, but yesterday's post about someone printing 400 pages reminded me of this one incident. There was a meeting between our boss and some very important people. They needed to look at a certain document, but the boss forgot to make copies for everyone and the VIPs were annoyed because they had to pause the meeting until copies were made. I was tasked with making the actual photocopies while the boss sat around having a coffee with the VIPs and complaining about incompetent staff. One of the managers handed me the document and told me to make 4 copies. At the time, I had never used a professional office printer and there were a lot of buttons on that thing. So I asked him which settings to use. One-sided or two-sided, black and white, and so on. Don't touch any of the settings, just make 4 copies. Okay. So I walked up to the printer, put my original document in, selected the photocopy option, selected 4 copies, and clicked confirm without even looking at the other settings. After a while, longer than expected, the printer started churning out sheets of paper in A2 size. For you US folks, that's twice the length and twice the height of letter size. Pretty much a small poster. And I wasn't able to stop the printing, and so I ended up with my 4 copies in A2 size, because those were the settings used by the last person who printed anything. I figured the boss and the manager didn't want their document in this huge size. So I went into the settings panel and tried to set the printer to use the regular A4, letter-sized paper. As I said, I had never used this kind of office printer and the manager had refused to explain anything. So this task had taken me maybe 5 minutes already. As I'm pushing buttons on the machine, the manager plops his head out of the conference room and calls out to me. "Renticle, are the copies done yet? Why are you wasting time?" "Yes, one moment, I'm trying to..." "Why are you touching the settings? I told you to leave it as it is. Stop messing with that printer and bring us the documents already." "Yes, but the copies..." "Hurry up." And he slams the door, refusing to listen to me. So I figure, whatever, this is still readable. I drape the printed A2 sheets on my arm and walk into the conference room, where the manager, the boss, and 2 VIPs are waiting. Without saying anything, I place one copy of the document in front of everyone. They're so large that they cover the entire table. "What's this?" "The document you wanted copies of. The manager told me not to change the settings on the printer and it was set to A2, so it came out like this." Both the boss and the manager were angry at me, but the VIPs said that this document was good enough and they should start the meeting already. Of course, they had heard the manager loudly telling me not to change the settings, and I think they found the situation funny. The meeting room had a glass wall, so I could see the 4 of them for the next hour, highlighting and making notes on those huge sheets of paper. Well, in all fairness, I guess they've got a lot more room to write notes. Hey everyone, I hope you all had a really good day and that you enjoyed that video. If you want to check out some other videos, then click on screen right now, or check out the playlist down below. If you enjoyed that video, then please do leave a like, and if you want to submit your own stories, then you can do so by joining the Discord in the top link in the description. But thank you so much for watching, and I will see you very soon.